Alright, beautiful night for a fire. We're going to do a Reed's Canary burn. Reed's Canary is an invasive species, completely takes over normally low-lying marsh areas, and if you don't do anything, it's going to be there forever. So we're going to do our best to reclaim this area and give it back to the wildlife, make it worth something to them. So first step of that's going to be to light this area up. So stick with me and I'll show you what we're up to tonight. Here's the spot we're burning. You can see it's a sea of Reed's Canary grass. We started this burn on the northeast part of the property. The reason we did that is because we had a southwest wind. So the goal was to burn into the wind for a more controlled fire. I also like burning into the wind because that fire tends to churn and roll a bit as it's pushing into the wind. So with that churning and that rolling, it tends to burn down a little bit deeper and you get a little bit better fire. As you can see behind our initial fire line here, we have a good tilled fire break. Now you always want to have strong fire breaks around the area that you're going to burn. That is your first line of defense against the fire to make sure that it doesn't get out of control. So once this initial fire line got about 30 yards away from the fire line on the other side of this burn here, I sent the other guys in our crew up that line and started that line on fire so I could send a head fire back at this initial fire line. I don't want my initial fire line to hit that opposite side fire break with full momentum and risk the fire jumping over the fire break. So that's why we burn back at our initial fire break. So eventually these two fires meet in the middle and then they just lose fuel and put themselves out. You can see I got that fire rolling right there. Big thing is trying to burn into the wind. Tonight we had a little bit of swirling wind, but our winds are probably only 4 to 6 miles an hour, so we're still getting a pretty good fire. And you'll notice once it hits that little berm right there, it's going to run up it pretty fast because fire likes to run uphill. But decent burn tonight, maybe not as great as we were hoping. It is wet underneath, but we wanted a controlled fire. So big thing is that we don't get it out of control. Have to call the fire department. So going good so far though. A lot of times with a Reed's Canary burn, there is that risk of that fire kind of dropping down into that heavy thatch layer, and a lot of times there's a layer of peat underneath it, and that fire can sit and smolder in that peat layer and that thatch layer for a week, 2, 3 weeks at a time. So there is a risk that a wind would kick up and disperse those sparks and that fire that's sitting underneath that peat layer and start a fire weeks after the burn is done. But on this night, like I said, it was very wet underneath because the snow had just melted. So we did not have to, and we actually had a lot of rain before this, so we did not have to worry about the fire getting out of control because it was so sopping wet underneath. It was burning that top layer, but it was wet underneath, so there was very little smoldering when this fire was done. So what are we going to do next after this fire is done? Well, like I said, this area is completely dominated by Reed's Canary. You really need to treat Reed's Canary kind of like buckthorn. It's a multi-year process to get rid of it. There is a very heavy seed component in this area. This area has been probably Reed's Canary for who knows how long. But because it's been Reed's Canary for so long, there's a ton of seed sitting in the soil. So if you want to eradicate it, you need to commit to eradicating it. It's not just a one-year deal. So the reason that we wanted to burn first is because we wanted to remove as much thatch as possible. And we're going to let that Reed's Canary grass sprout back. And then the landowner is going to get after that Reed's Canary grass with a combination of clethodim and crop oil. Now the clethodim is a grass-specific herbicide that will just target the Reed's Canary and kill that, but he's going to have to stay at it. He'll probably have to do at least 2 sprayings this first year, and then a spraying or 2 for the next 2 or 3, 4 years after this. because there's so much Reed's Canary seed sitting in the soil, and the birds will probably start to bring some Reed's Canary seed in here. So the first goal is to get that Reed's Canary seed killed, because nothing else will grow here. There will be no chance of native shrubs or anything like that growing in this area if we have this thick, rank stand of Reed's Canary. We need to get it killed back, and then we can start our process of converting this back to native habitat. The first thing I like to do after doing a burn like this and then starting to hit it with spray is just see what type of native seeds may be sitting in the soil, or what type of native seeds the birds will start to disperse in this area over the next few years. Because we're getting rid of this nasty thatch layer, and because we're going to stay after this Reed's Canary and killing it, we should be able to start to see some native shrubs and plants sprout in this area. Now, I'm not saying that this area is going to completely fill in with native shrubs. We don't know what's in the seed bed until we release it, and that's what we're going to do over the next few years by killing this Reed's Canary grass back. But there could be some good native seeds sitting in here, so we'll see what sprouts out of the native seed bed over the next few years. As you can see here in the video now, I'm walking back through this area and just looking for hot spots, and yeah, there was a pretty good hot spot right there. So that's really important when you're done doing a burn, to go back through and spray any spots that you see that are still smoking. Alright, so back to what I was talking about with converting this native habitat. So we are going to kill the grass back. We're going to see what comes back as far as shrubs and native plants. And the other thing we'll probably do is start to actually plant some good deer species in here ourselves. So it's going to be a combination of, because this is a wet area, it'll probably be red osier dogwood, gray dogwood, and elderberry that we'll plant in this area. So even if way down the road the Reed's Canary grass fills this area back in, if we can at least get native shrubs established, we'll have good native structure in this area, as opposed to a sea of grass that is doing absolutely nothing for wildlife. All right, a beautiful sunset behind me. The burn is done. We did not burn the county down, and I would say we got a good enough burn. Burn conditions in Minnesota can get pretty volatile in the spring, so we maybe could have waited for it to dry out a little more, but we also didn't want to lose it. A lot of swamp around here, and it could travel for a long ways. So overall, all I'd say, mission accomplished. So anyway, beautiful night to be out in creation. Y'all take care. God bless.